Alrighty, dudes. How you guys today? Okay, let's see. Oh, Lordy. Me. Oh, there we go. Oh, Lord. Okay, dudes. Uh, yeah, see what this thing is. Wait a minute. That should be it. Oh, whoa, bro. Whoa, we're on the round one, dudes. We're on the round one. I didn't want to play that one yet. I do want to play the test server. I just want to play my my regular one first because of the uh, crap getting the battle pass stuff done. It doesn't take long either, so at all. Doesn't take long at all to do them. So nothing that matters that big lot, you know. Shouldn't take us hour two at the most, and we'll play the definitely want to get get 100 doubloons. That was from the okay. So this free daily whatever. It's Captain Points. Okay. There's so much browse we got left here. Should be no more like a day or whatever. One day. We'll play it again. I mean, most definitely want to get these knocked out, then we'll go play something, regardless of something else, you know, on the test server, that is. But, you know, I had pretty rough time with this thing uh, over the, okay. Alrighty.
Autopilot mode enabled. Extraction stations.
We haven't played this in quite a bit, so. Well, I played yesterday, didn't I? Sometimes today. Yeah, played yesterday.
Awaiting instructions.
Yesterday morning, I
Capture that area.
That was the other night. I had just after 12, so I missed one day of getting those. Get this 8,000.
Enemy force detected.
Because we get them community tokens. That should help us quite a bit.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Oh God, there, boy. We got one of them training ships.
Provide anti-aircraft fire support. Set a smoke screen.
We'll ram this little bitch right there.
Torpedoes, dead ahead. Hull breach. We're taking on water quickly. Problem solved, sir. Ship is on fire.
Burn down the bitch.
Our team has taken the lead.
We got son of a gun. We were close. We were close. Come on, bro, take him out. And you got him. Should have had shit. Where was it? Destroyer behind you. Oh, that guy still ain't going. Here he is. Yes, he is. Well, he's got you, bro. You got a couple. Okay, you got him. That's 2 destroyers.
Our team has taken the lead.
Our team has taken the lead.
Battle ends in 5 minutes.
Our victory is in sight.
Well, I hope so. You know, it'd be nice. Okay, now let's see here what we can find. They hating on President Trump about this week. Let you listen to a little bit of that crap. Hopefully, let's see. That's news. Here we go, news. This would be a very bad move for Kathy Hochul. Let's see here what they got on Kathy Hochul. It's hard to say, really, to be honest. She's a shitty governor of New York, so.
See your city, your street.
The DOJ now moving to dismiss corruption charges brought against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The mayor telling Fox and Friends yesterday that all claims of any immigration quid pro quo were false.
Okay.
Think about my attorney, Alex Spira, one of the top trial attorneys in the country. Imagine him going inside saying that the only way Mayor Adams is going to assist in immigration, which I was calling for since 2022, right, is if you drop the charge. That's quid pro quo. That's a crime. It took her 3 weeks to report in front of her a criminal action. Come on, this is silly.
Joining us now to discuss is Rebecca Rose Woodland, a trial attorney based in New York. So great to see you, Rebecca. So just to sort of bring everybody up to speed on this, the allegation, the theory is that DOJ agreed to drop charges against federal corruption charges against Eric Adams in exchange for him cooperating on immigration enforcement.
Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So in exchange for Eric Adams doing his job, which is allowing the federal government and now President Trump, who now runs this country, coming in saying, I don't want illegal immigrants in this country and I want to deport those who we choose, who we find are criminals or for whatever reason ICE decides should not be here. So you're telling me that President Donald Trump made a deal with Eric Adams. He's the mayor of a city. The president of the United States had to beg him to do his job. It is ridiculous.
Well, but obviously there are a lot of cities run by a lot of mayors who are not doing their jobs and are clearly working to circumvent federal laws about immigration. But let me ask you about this. So a bunch of federal prosecutors quit in response to all that. What do you make of their actions?
Well, they quit. Were they the people who were bringing this sort of attempted, what we call political opposition? Mayor Adams claims he complained during Joe Biden's administration and then got hit with these indictments that he said were completely false. Now, was this the same warfare that was used against President Trump with Alvin Bragg, Letitia James? Was this the same thing? Were these people participating in a scheme like that? And that's not where the Justice Department should be.
So one of the really crazy things about the story is that now Governor Kathy Hochul actually has the authority to remove Adams as mayor of New York City. What are the dynamics that go into her thinking right now on that?
I mean, I don't know her personally, but I would think that would be a very bad move for her. Eric Adams is doing his job. He complained for years about the burdens this city was taking on with these illegal immigrants. He complained to the administration before Donald Trump's administration. And you're telling me now that she's going to remove him? Why? Because Pam Bondi, who happens to be a great friend of mine who I've known for years, she's an honest, ethical DOJ, that she's running a division and a department that is just doing their job. If they reviewed the case and said there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
Really?
Well, I can say this as a regular taxpayer and American citizen, that a deal to drop charges against Eric Adams in exchange for actually doing something about illegal immigration, millions of illegals flooding into, and not to mention tens of billions of dollars that we're spending on this, maybe not such a bad deal. Rebecca Rose Woodland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey there, no need to adjust your TV, or more likely your phone. You're watching.
Whatever. Man, I honestly can't believe that guy did that. It had that. Two out of them. What we get there? 8 boxes. I know it was last time. It might be that. I don't know. Yeah, 8 boxes and 8 of them. We'll save those for. Let's open them 8 boxes. I can't believe that dude. Honestly, man, but he did that crap. That was crappy. Ooh. Let's see what Dory says.
Democrats have suffered another loss in court, this time to Elon Musk and Doge. Also, Pam Bondi speaks out about why charges should be dropped for Mayor Eric Adams, and the media has continued to lose it over RFK. We're going to get to all of this in this video, but let's start with what the judge had to say about Doge.
You know, a federal judge just handed Elon Musk's Doge a win ruling, and he can now access data to 3 government agencies. What more can you tell us about that? Because that is a hot topic this week.
Yeah, that's right. There was an attempt by some groups to essentially block Elon Musk from gaining access to sensitive information from some of these agencies, including the Consumer Financial Protection Board and the Department of Labor. A federal judge, though, ultimately handing down a decision that says that Elon Musk can get access to that information. Laura, this is just underscoring the power and influence that Elon Musk has in Washington. You're seeing a picture on your screen right there. He was in the Oval Office beside President Trump at the White House earlier this week. He's leading that Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, which has become a key priority for the Trump administration. So I expect we're going to be seeing a lot more and hearing a lot more from Elon Musk as these efforts continue to get underway.
All right, so now we're continuing to see the outcome of these lawsuits and how they are not on the side of Democrats, because all they can do is sue the Trump administration at this point. But on what basis? I mean, what President Trump is doing through executive order and the power vested within, he has the ability to order Elon Musk to go into these agencies and audit them. And all Democrats can do is, cry and scream that he has access to sensitive information. And you guys have heard me say this so many times. The man has a top secret clearance. So this is a huge win for Doge and a huge loss for the Democrats. Now, let's hear another troubling revelation for that party, where the Judge Chutkan, who we know President Trump does not like, and she was involved in the Jack Smith case. Here she is expressing her skepticism on the lawsuits as well.
14 states' attorneys general have hit a roadblock in their efforts to stop Elon Musk and Doge. The attorneys general argued that Trump violated the appointments clause of the Constitution by creating Doge, an unofficial government agency without congressional approval, and by granting Musk sweeping powers without seeking the advice and consent of the Senate. But federal judge Tanya Chutkan didn't seem convinced that the states showed enough evidence of imminent harm. At one point, Chutkan told a lawyer from the Maryland Attorney General's office, quote, You're essentially asking me to shut down the government. The lawyer replied, we're asking you to shut down a constitutional violation that we haven't seen in this country.
Yeah, so this reminds me of the Democrats and how they handle free speech, right? They say, no, we love free speech. We respect free speech. But hey, don't say that. That's misinformation. Hey, don't allow that to be on your social media platform. That's misinformation, right? I mean, their problem is they're a walking contradiction, okay? They don't want Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge to audit the federal government, but they want a democracy. They want the government to work for the people, but they want to shut the government down. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And you know who else sees it this way? Swing voters out of the state of Arizona. The American people are not stupid, okay? They see what's going on here. But the Democrats don't want to accept that reality. Now, here's Fox News, the TV show The Five, talking about what these swing voters had to say about Doge.
We're seeing polling in Arizona from swing state people. Kennedy, they want them to keep going. They say keep cutting. They love it.
And it was actually a very interesting polling group because it was people who had voted for Biden in 2020 who then switched their votes to Trump in 2024 because Bidenomics, as was the case for most people in the country, it didn't work out for them. So it didn't work out for them because their taxes are too high, eggs are too expensive, people still are having a hard time at making mortgage payments and paying the rent and affording college and everything else. So now they're realizing where that hard-earned tax money is actually going. And the more we hear about $160 million going to a Canadian electric school bus factory that has now declared bankruptcy and never made good on their promise to deliver school buses, 100 million of them, to 55 school districts in the country, it's like that's where my money has gone. They actually want more of it because the feeling is if you cut out entire departments and if you shed sunlight on all of this waste and abuse, then maybe taxes will finally come down.
Yeah, but that's not how these blue states, their attorney generals, are seeing all of this. They see it as a threat. They see it as a harm on the citizens or the people who live in their state, that Elon Musk having access to this information will damage our democracy. And of course, we know that is all premature because what laws have really been broken at this point? Has Elon Musk or Doge or President Trump violated the Constitution? No, they haven't. So what they're really doing is wasting the court's time.
Let's read what Judge Chutkan said because it is. She seemed to express a lot of skepticism yesterday, and this is reporting from yesterday. Judge Chutkan repeatedly questioned what imminent harm the states were facing from Musk and Doge's work that would warrant an incredibly broad temporary restraining order. She also said that plaintiffs' use of words like perhaps and may when describing how states could be harmed by Doge's actions undercut their argument that irreversible harm was imminent. You're saying I should tell Doge and their officials to stop what they're doing because we don't know what they're doing, she said. And this is from Daniel Barnes of NBC News.
Essentially, we're not in a constitutional crisis because I know that's what the Democrats want everybody to believe. This judge is clearly stating that you guys are getting ahead of yourself. You're asking me to do something that technically you shouldn't even be asking me to do. And the other thing here is what laws have they broken? I just said it, right? You can't really identify one. All this really is, well, we believe they will. Well, that's not going to work, of course. Now, let's go back to that whole constitutional crisis buzzword, because when you have Jon Stewart having to fact check you about that term, yeah, you know you guys have gone off a cliff.
We're in a constitutional crisis, and we very well may be. I'm not trying to downplay that reality. When you have a president, which seems to be what's happening, and an administration who are defying a court order, that is ignoring the one branch of government, that is technically, I think as lawyers would define it, a constitutional crisis.
Right. Well, then through an appeal
There could be.
We're a little bit down the road, but yes.
A road to a constitutional crisis.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay.
That's what a press secretary does.
The
See?
road to constitutional crisis. Boy, if that's not a title of a Rachel Maddow special, I don't know what is.
Well, there may be.
Yeah, so that is just sad that he has to correct her on that, given that she was a White House press secretary, and she obviously has her own show. But here's what's really damaging to them and their whole mindset, and why this is actually great news for people like you and me. The more the Democrats continue to double down on hyperbolic language, how they continue to choose extreme language in everything, that they're reacting to. What they're doing is programming their base to clearly live in fear, but they're alienating the people in the center who clearly have the biggest impact on the elections, right? The swing voters. So they're not speaking their language, they're not relating to them, and we would love for them to keep doing this. Please, don't change. Keep speaking this way, because that means that we will continue to win. And when I say we, I'm talking about common sense. Now, let's just hear how demoralized they are at this point.
General, this reminds me so much of situations in which you bring concern, evidence, facts to an argument, to a case, and folks say, well, essentially, we got to wait till something bad happens before we do something, which is why I think a lot of folks out here are beginning to express, as our friend Elie Mystal we were talking about before, that the courts are not going to save us in this. That, with all due respect to the lawsuits, and that's great, continue suing. At the end of the day, you're going to have judges who are going to parse, and they're going to, piecemeal. They're going to approach this from a appropriate judicial, constitutional perspective. But do you get the sense that, and I know you're in a tough position when I ask this question, do you get the sense that, they don't get that this is, the house is on fire? It may not be burning in the room you're in, but the back porch is on fire.
All right, so what I see here is an individual who is having a hard time accepting that Doge hasn't broken the law yet. And he's just hoping that they would, so that they can actually have a legitimate case to bring to the courts. If someone doesn't break the law, why are you wasting the court's time? That's what's happening here. Now, to even prove my point even more about how pathetic they are, this takes us to the next story, which is this entire corruption case with Mayor Eric Adams and how they're trying to tie it to Trump. And even in the headlines, they're saying, yes, Trump ordered quid pro quo. Now, here is what Pam Bondi had to say, where she defended the decision to drop the charges against the mayor.
But listen, we have a right to protect the weaponization, against weaponization in New York and every state in this country, and also national security. What did Eric Adams announce today? That he's going to open Rikers Island for these illegal immigrants. When did they go after him? When he started criticizing the Biden administration, he criticized them for all of their immigration practices. New Yorkers aren't safe, and Eric Adams is going to keep New York safe. They took away his security clearance, which he's about to get back, so he can help keep New York safe. Whether Kathy Hochul's going to enforce it, the mayor of New York will enforce it.
So at this point, though, the case has not been dropped, actually, because of this pushback. What happens in that?
Yeah, Martha, I'm on a different time zone, but it's my understanding it is being dismissed today.
I just don't. I don't get it. I don't see why anybody would be against it whatsoever. Democrat or Republican, I would not honestly see why you would have any.
Now, as she stated, she claimed that the charges would be dropped. They were not dropped yet. In fact, it is being reported that they will be going in front of a judge to hear both sides, and then the judge will make a determination if the charges can be dropped or not. Now, speaking of a judge, here is a former district court judge who had an interesting take about all of this.
So, Judge Shedlin, I'm looking forward to hearing your insight here, given the role that you used to play as a judge, potentially overseeing something like this. How do you see Judge Dale Ho viewing this dismissal motion, considering the quid pro quo allegation in this case?
I think he's going to listen pretty hard to both sides, and he's going to have a lot of questions for everyone. I don't think he's simply going to rubber stamp this. I agree with Jennifer that it's going to be a pretty searching inquiry, because in her letter, Danielle Sassoon, she pointed out that it has to be in the public interest. And if it's not in the public interest, it shouldn't be dismissed. So he can question them and say, why is this in the public interest, or why isn't it in the public interest to let this go right now?
Now, in regards to public interest, it's very clear. If you live in New York City, You want the illegal aliens out. You want the criminals out. You want to stop seeing people burned on the subway. There's no question about that. And Mayor Eric Adams, without the corruption charges, was already in trouble because of how much crime has skyrocketed and clearly the illegal migration crisis. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of public interest out there to have him actually do his job. And if he can't do his job because you guys will indict him and try to put him in prison, then you should just go ahead and remove him from office, okay? Let's not keep him 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Now, I believe that's a common sense perspective on all this, but not the fake Reverend Al Sharpton. He believes it's President Trump who is the mayor of New York City.
But to your point, how do New Yorkers live in a city not run by its elected leader? You said and AOC says Adams must be removed. The city cannot sustain being governed for nearly a year by a mayor who's being coerced. I mean, who's running the city right now?
I think that's what the judge is going to have to answer, because right now, from the statement given to the court about why they want to drop these charges, Donald Trump's running the city right now. He's got to be available to work with the president. That's a quote on immigration. So the mayor at this point is Donald Trump.
Okay, so obviously we know that is not true whatsoever. President Trump is not the mayor of New York City, never will be. But what's worse than that is what CNN is up to. Now, what they're trying to do is prove that there is a quid pro quo, just based on the interview with Tom Homan and Eric Adams on Fox and Friends that occurred yesterday. Watch this.
I wanted to play what Tom Homan said today with his appearance on Mayor Adams on Fox. Here he is.
If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City, and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, "Where the hell is the agreement we came to?"
What is he saying there? Where the hell is the agreement we came to? If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City.
Yeah, so he's basically, this is the quid pro quo. It seems like this is the implicit threat. If you don't come through and you're part of the agreement, I'm coming back to claim what we have, which is that we have submitted to the court that the case is still strong, and we're asking the court to dismiss it, but not to throw it completely away. It's still hanging out there.
So we can hang it like a sword.
Absolutely. So the concern is that it's not just weaponization to drop the case, it's actually weaponization to keep the case hovering above the mayor's head.
So they can continue to do what they want. It's an incredible moment that we are in. Thank you very much, Ryan.
And it doesn't take much. That's how CNN operates. You know, they take the clip, they turn that clip into a story that has nothing to do with the actual clip itself, but it sounds good. And if you're not willing to do your research and you're not willing to actually watch the context within that clip, like that full interview, which clearly Tom Homan was not threatening him, it was coming on the back of the question that, hey, are you serious, Mayor Eric Adams, with working with Tom Homan? How do we know it's actually going to work between you two, et cetera, et cetera? But again, CNN, they're not going to play you that. And this also applies to what they refuse to tell us about Big Pharma and how much it's been killing American citizens, which is why they're continuing to run these hit pieces on RFK, even though he's been confirmed and sworn in as the next secretary. And to give you an example of what type of rhetoric they're still continuing to push, which we will debunk here shortly, let's take a look at this clip from CNN this morning.
So he's the worst person for what is, I think, a really good and important message. And listen, I was at Fox for all of those conversations. I was there. I was doing it. I was saying, stop Bloomberg and Obama with the food police. I got that. I got that resistance. Problem is, he is not the best advocate for science.
So he's essentially going to make us healthier and then we're going to die from whooping cough. Because of
exactly.
It's like
measles.
Healthy, but dead. I think this, again, it's the same thing we just were talking about. A grain of truth. We don't want war. A grain of truth. Kids, especially poor kids, shouldn't have to eat crappy cheese and things full of chemicals. It doesn't really matter because that industrial complex is going to push back against it no matter what.
All right, so what they're failing to understand time and time again is that the reason why American people do not trust the government or are now questioning vaccines is because there hasn't been any transparency. And the moment they start taking responsibility for that, they'll start to understand why people don't trust the government.
I think that RFK Jr. is here because the public has lost confidence in public health
as a result of the pandemic, where things were obscured from the public, where things were oversold, like the vaccine, which, as you know, I'm a believer in vaccines, big believer, but the vaccine was oversold. The issue of vaccine injury from it was undersold. I think there was a lot of obfuscation, and the public is reacting, of course, by electing President Trump and now by bringing in a reformer. And this reformer is saying a lot of things, Harris. First of all, he's saying, what are we eating? What's in our diet? Why aren't we exercising? Why are 44% of American adults obese, and more importantly, 20% of our children? And does that lead to chronic disease? He's been getting pushback on that. It does lead to chronic disease. I'm here to tell you the diseases I treat in the office are due to what we are doing in terms of what we put in our bodies and the way we are. So the idea, and then looking at the environment, the Make America Healthy Again Commission is going to look at what's in our environment, the microplastics, the ultra-processed foods, the food dyes.
And this will be an issue that the Democrats will lose on as well, because of the way they're continuing to talk about it. They're not actually talking about the issue that parents really care about. They're talking about RFK. Just like President Trump and Elon Musk. Democrats are talking about Trump, they're talking about Elon Musk, but they're not talking about the fraud. And the average American out there, they're going to see right through that. And again, I'm not complaining here. Please just keep doing that. We want to continue to win here. So guys, trust me, I love all this. Now, speaking of President Trump and Elon Musk, they did an interview with Sean Hannity. It airs on Tuesday. They have released one clip of this interview so far, and I love it because it's about what the media continues to fail at, which is to sow division between these two men. Watch.
They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, you know, they're trying to drive us apart. I said, absolutely. No, they said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. And I say, it's just so obvious. They're so bad at it. I used to think they were good at it. They're actually bad at it, because if they were good at it, I'd never be president. Because I think nobody in history has ever gotten more bad publicity than me. I could do the greatest things. I get 98% bad publicity. I could do, outside of you and a few of your very good friends, it's like the craziest thing. But you know what I have learned, Elon? The people are smart. They get it.
Yeah, they do, actually.
They get it. They really see what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, of course they get it, because it's common sense. And that's the age that we find ourselves in today. We're getting back to common sense policies, including Democrats who are calling for Elon Musk's contracts with the federal government to be canceled because they believe there's a conflict of interest.
I will tell you, just as a broader political matter, I do think the American people are giving this administration pretty wide latitude to shrink the size of the federal government. And doing so with probationary employees, meaning they haven't been there that long at all, strikes me as one good way to go about it, even if you occasionally trip into some mistake, like perhaps, I'm not saying they did, but perhaps they did on this particular agency.
There's plenty of places to trim the fat in government, and I would certainly start with, maybe the $8 billion that Elon Musk gets from contracts with the federal government?
Well, number one, if I could just go back to something Naira said, before you start cutting all of Elon Musk's ties to the federal government, understand that we've asked him to rescue our 2 astronauts in outer space. So maybe don't take a meat axe to Elon's engagement with the feds until we get our astronauts home. Number one. Number two, the reason that they're moving fast is because momentum begets momentum. Trump created tremendous political momentum for this kind of change by winning the national popular vote and a real mandate in the Electoral College. He extended the momentum by having a really good transition. And of course, his first 3+ weeks in office, he's continued that.
So my question is, where was that energy for George Soros, or the energy for people who serve in Congress, who are on the board of directors on some of these companies who have contracts with the federal government? What about that? I mean, this is why it's so childish when Democrats speak this way. Like Elon Musk is this huge conflict of interest only because he's the richest person in the world. Why wouldn't we use someone who's that level of genius and that level of success to help us fix what's wrong with the federal government? I would think it's worth trying, but they've been trying to tear him down every single step of the way. And again, This is something they will lose on, and we want them to lose because when they lose, that means we win, and that means most of Americans will win because it's all based around common sense. Okay, now this last story for you here is really entertaining, okay, because this just shows you how impactful Doge has been. Now, in the Washington, D.C. area, it is being reported that since Doge began discussing mass layoffs, the median home price in Washington, D.C. has fallen by $139,000 in 30 days. Nearly 4,000 homes have been listed for sale in and around Washington, D.C. Well, what's happening is liberals are fleeing. And of course, as pointed out by Amuse, it's less of a market shift and more of a mass evacuation, like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Here's a photo of it. You guys can go on Zillow and look this up yourself. All of the new listings, it's quite fascinating. It just shows you that for so long, the housing market around Washington, D.C. has always been intact, right? Been very solid and strong. And now this is clearly a disruption in that. Will they be able to sell all their homes? I don't believe so. Now, the other point that I find to be fascinating is that a lot of these new listings are definitely $1 million or more in value. And what that is suggesting, according to this user on X, is that these are high-profile jobs that are exiting this area. And of course, you have to think about the commercial real estate in Washington as well, because we know that Doge announced to eliminate up to 2/3 of U.S. government office buildings. And of course, not even a single major U.S. government agency is currently occupying even 50% of their office space. So what happens with that whole market as well? And this is just a developing story because it's showing you how impactful Doge is and how it's going to affect maybe other industries out there in the D.C. area. All right, so let's get your guys' answers in the comment section below to this question. What's your reaction to Judge Chutkan? Now, we know she doesn't like President Trump. We know President Trump really isn't a fan of her either. She was the judge that was presiding over that whole Jack Smith case in regards to January 6th. So what do you think about her actually expressing skepticism in regards to Democrats believing that what Doge is doing should be shut down because it's harmful to American citizens? I'm interested to hear your take in the comment section below. Now, one thing that actually caught people's attention yesterday, actually on the world stage, was Vice President J.D. Vance. He actually attended the security conference in Munich, Germany, and he pretty much called out European leaders to their face because we know they don't really believe in free speech, and they are not a great example of democracy no longer. Now, if you missed out on some of the statements that he made and the reactions that came with it, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.
Day I do not see the big hubbub when it comes about Elon Musk looking into them. I just don't, man. I mean, and like I said, we all got our own rights to our political opinions, and there ain't no need to player hating stuff on each other about it. If you don't like it, ain't nobody gonna convince you otherwise. But I mean, in my whole honesty, I just do not see anything wrong with them looking into what the government's spending and doing. I just don't. Now, there ain't no proof of it. I've seen them showing proof that at USAID, like I'm getting ready to play this, of some of the idiotic crap they're doing. And people say, well, I ain't seen no proof. Oh, dude, they'll say, well, a tweet on Twitter.
As you know, the federal government is spending money like it's going out of style. Last year, it spent nearly $7 trillion. and the revenues were $5.2 trillion. Nobody in this country can do that. Nobody can do it in their personal life. Businesses can't do it, only the federal government. We're being forced to borrow another $1.9 trillion to make up for it. It's one of the reasons that we now have over $36 trillion worth of debt, and we're heading quickly to 37. Over the last 4 years, while the population has grown 2%, the federal government has increased spending by 53%. They've added $8 trillion to national debt in 4 years. This is not sustainable. If nothing changes, our federal government is on track to add $1 trillion to the federal debt every 180 days. The cost of this debt is another massive problem. Right now, more than $1 trillion of money that hardworking Americans pay in taxes each year is just going to pay the interest on their federal debt. That's a waste. So I'm very appreciative of what President Trump's doing and what DOJ is doing to try to find all this waste. They're going agency by agency, one by one, and find out how every single dollar is spent and making sure it's spent in the best interest of the American public. Unfortunately, many Democrats on this committee have expressed outrage. But the outrage is better suited for some of the absurd, wasteful spending they've already uncovered. Let's look at USAID. They provided full funding for al-Qaeda terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki to attend college in Colorado. They gave $310 million to start a Palestinian cement factory, which is used to help Hamas build terror tunnels into Gaza. How can you be this stupid? Another $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and to business communities. How does that help an American? $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. How does that help America? $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. How does that help America? A multi-year study from the Middle East Forum uncovered $164 million of approved grants to radical organizations, $122 million going to groups aligned with designated terrorists. How does that help Americans? And billions more to add charities that have histories of failing to vet their terror-tied partners. The families I represent would agree that's not how they want their tax dollars spent. They'd rather have their tax dollars spent putting Americans first or advancing our interests abroad, not funding terrorism against us or allies or funding some fringe globalist agenda. So I'm very appreciative of what President Trump has done. I appreciate what DOJ is doing, and I appreciate that Marco Rubio, our ex-colleague, is doing running the state. So, Mr. Schellenberger, DOJ also discovered that the Biden administration spent millions of dollars on subscriptions to left-leaning media outlets like Politico. The Biden administration censored certain media and Americans online that didn't favor the administration's narrative, and now we see that their administration was essentially financing media outlets that favor them. How is this not a conflict of interest, and what do you think of this?
Yeah, I agree it's a huge conflict of interest, and it's really just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, what we uncovered in our reporting is that the USAID has basically been bankrolling an organization called the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which has been in the process over the last decade and a half of really taking over so-called independent investigative journalism around the world, usually relying on strategic leaks by the intelligence community, but with an aim to really undermine the independence of investigative journalism. When we started investigating these guys, they threatened to sue us right away. They have a $9 million fund just to sue people. It's called Reporters Shield, but it's an offensive weapon that they use to basically shut down any inquiry into what they're doing. And we've even seen we've now traced that USAID money to investigations that were essential to the 2019 impeachment of President Donald Trump, and then also to the Russiagate hoax, particularly spreading misinformation and malinformation about Trump's alleged ties to the Russians. Of course, one of the greatest conspiracy theory of the recent era, which alleged that because President Trump banked with Deutsche Bank, and that there were Russians, oligarchs who also banked with Deutsche Bank, that there had to be some sort of a conspiracy. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, sir. It's really a deep corruption of so-called mainstream independent media.
Based on your investigation, you also talk about how USAID transfers funds between projects, make it hard for anybody to try to track the funds. Can you elaborate?
Well, sure. And so, part of what happened is that one of the media organizations in Germany, one of their big television stations, NDR, really turned the tables on OCCRP and began an investigation. USAID admitted on camera that they had routed money from the State Department's Law Enforcement Bureau through USAID just for optics reasons, admitting on camera that they did that because they knew that it would look bad for an investigative journalism organization to be supported by effectively the cops, by law enforcement. That's not good journalism practice. That violates basically every code of ethics by every journalism organization in the world. They also acknowledged that USAID has to agree to OCCRP's work plan and that they have to agree to their key staff. And this was all literally recorded on video, USAID officials saying this. Then afterwards, OCCRP denied it. They just said that wasn't true. It just asserted that it was false. So, I mean, really what you're looking at with OCCRP and also Internews is that these are really vectors of disinformation. They spread disinformation and then demand censorship on the basis of it. That's what they did with the COVID lab leak, as the chairman was mentioning. First, they spread the disinformation that it was a conspiracy theory that it could have come from a lab, when, of course, their own scientists suspected that's what it was. And then they demanded censorship on the basis of it. Same thing happened with Hunter Biden, and we see that playbook, I think, underway here today, where when journalists start to expose these misdeeds, they just project and say, you're spreading a conspiracy theory, and of course that has been traditionally the basis for demanding censorship.
In 2022, the Biden administration donated $344 million to the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian refugees, and continued to donate hundreds of millions of dollars throughout 2023 and during the Israeli-Hamas war. We now know Hamas terrorists were stealing food and supplies intended for humanitarian purposes. So was the U.S. government funding a terrorist organization?
It sure looks like that, and I haven't investigated that particular case. But I think one of the big lessons from all of this, we may remember, those of us that are old enough to remember what we were learning after 9/11, is that was a process of blowback. We had been arming the Mujahideen, and we had been in alliance with the folks that actually then, their networks then ended up creating the 9/11 attacks. So I think what we're seeing here, starting to blow back on us, where we see the disinformation and censorship being weaponized against the American people, because we have a USAID complex that's been completely unaccountable. Obviously, the Inspector General wasn't doing his job right, and therefore I think merits this very serious audit. And I agree with the chairman. If there's good stuff that they've been doing, and I don't doubt that there has been, then it should make the case for it and be added in back later, rather than sort of that we all assume that everything's fine.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Kim.
There's nothing more powerful than you making your thing happen, really going for it, doing business.
All right, bro. Hang on here a second. We're in the middle of a battle here in Kansas. Okay.
Today, Elon Musk, who has enormous influence in the Trump administration, posted on X, quote, there needs to be an immediate wave of judicial impeachments, not just one. As the Attorney General of the United States, how do you respond to that? Should the process work out in the courts before we talk about judicial impeachments? I mean, these are just TROs now at this time. Shouldn't these just play out?
Yeah, I haven't seen Elon Musk tweet. He is a friend of mine. He is a great man. I think he's very frustrated with what's happening in our federal government. We're going to back up Elon Musk every way we can. That includes lawsuits against these people who are doing that, and we will be successful.
Do you have concerns about judicial impeachments?
That's not going to happen now. We're going to look at everything.
that I'll guarantee you, Pam Bondi will be successful when she goes taking them to court. No doubt. No doubt in my mind that she won't be. Does it make you cook?
Dude, what is he saying?
Oh no, we've become so smart, they're stupid to us!
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh boy, do I have a video for you guys today. It's been hilarious and also truly pathetic, watching the left scramble for new talking points. It's been one pathetic attempt after another, and well, today, we've got the latest Trump derangement syndrome software update that leftoids are inserting in their rhetoric drive, and just when you thought it couldn't get any more pathetic, the Democrats always prove you wrong. The latest TDS chip has actually been updated, and the new version is no longer TDS, it's EDS, Elon Musk derangement syndrome. Yup, I read the patch notes, I read the code. The marching orders are clear, just attack Elon Musk as much as possible. I don't know who this is supposed to convince, especially when it's coming from someone like the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who just went on the record claiming that Elon Musk is stupid. Yup. Literal genius, really richest man on the planet, the guy who's catching rocket ships, coming back into Earth's orbit with freaking chopsticks. Yeah, apparently that guy is stupid, according to the bartender who won an audition to get her position in power. You really can't make this stuff up. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on as the left continues to melt down and as they continue to scramble pathetically to get their new winning talking point. But actually, let me get ahead of this one. AOC, Democrats, I could already see the writing on the wall. This ain't it. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Okay, so I guess we've officially seen it all. Elon Musk derangement syndrome, or Elon derangement syndrome, is hitting its peak. It started off with he's a threat to democracy. He's an apartheid-supporting white supremacist from South Africa. Oh, I can't even say this stuff without laughing. It's gone from all that, from panic and screaming, to now attacking Elon Musk as...
There's one single video that's responsible for leading over 2,000 Christian men to permanently quitting the P word. And this video that I'm going to share with you in a second has been creating waves on social media and sparked a movement of men stepping up and breaking free from the chains of the secret life they've been living.
Anthony Fauci.
Oh, doctor.
Under investigation by state AGs. This is an Outkick story. 19 state attorney generals, led by South Carolina AG Alan Wilson, sent a letter to Congress stating their intent to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci accountable at the state level despite President Joe Biden's preemptive pardon. The letter says, although former President Biden attempted to shield potential bad actors like Dr. Anthony Fauci from accountability via preemptive pardon, we are confident that state laws may provide a means to hold actors accountable for their misconduct. They requested that Congress share any findings of violations of state laws so they can evaluate state-level courses of action. The AGs accused Fauci of suppressing discussions about the lab leak theory and misleading the public on COVID vaccine risk, which they say contributed to an erosion of trust in health institutions. They wrote, Dr. Fauci led a deliberate campaign to stifle the voices of premier health scholars regarding the lack of adequate testing of vaccines, which kept the public from knowing about risks like myocarditis and pericarditis among young adult males, the verified increased risk of blood clots in women, and the long-term effects vaccines had on fertility. Glenn, will anything happen to Fauci?
Yes.
Please.
And I did not believe this. I mean, a year into it, I did a two-night special on just the stuff that we could find in public spaces that showed the smoking guns everywhere. Now we have the actual data. Now we have a preponderance of evidence, and he's backdated it to 2014 for very specific reasons. This guy has been breaking the law and becoming his own god, and he has to go to jail. And I never thought he would, but under Trump, it's not going to be vengeance. It's not going to be, repaying his enemies. They are looking for the truth between Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Bhattacharya, they're going to unravel this thing, and he's going to jail. And it will be because of the states. They have a right and a duty to do it.
Vinny?
I'm Glenn, like I have a list of the top 3 people that I just despise. As hard as this, being a Christian and trying to pray, and I actually have to pray for these people. Yeah. That's the hardest thing I think about being a Christian.
Yeah.
I have to pray that they get their souls intact, because at one point they're going to be judged. But he's at the top, and Alejandro Mayorkas have always been at the top, and Pat knows this. He pushed these lies, and like I saw a meme. Imagine getting medical advice from a doctor that needs a pardon for the medical advice that he gave you.
Yes.
That's why all these freaking Democrats, all these people, but you remember, Glenn, they would put those pictures of him in front of their lawns, like they would worship this demon.
He was the golden calf.
He was the golden calf. And people are like, well, Trump was, I mean, he's been around for what, 7 presidents? But while this is all going on, Pat, Doge announced, and Elon, that in the past 48 hours, HHS canceled 62 contracts worth $182 million, and one of them was, ready for spending, $168,000 contract for an Anthony Fauci exhibit at the NIH museum. They're like,
he's a god.
Put that, that's going down. And then the one more thing that I saw, it was Lauren Boebert was having a House Oversight Committee hearing, and they questioned Justin Goodman. He's a senior vice president at the White Coat Waste Project, about the National Institute NIH funding research that involves, they were implanting tissue from aborted fetuses into lab animals, so abortions, that's why they're so pro-abortion. He confirmed that such studies have been funded by the NIH, specifically mentioning Dr. Fauci's NIH allergy and infectious disease. That's
He's
what
a
he
monster.
was doing. That's what he was doing. Pat, you want to hear this clip?
Yeah, of course.
This is it.
I believe this is going to change your life. Yeah, that simple circle is a cell. Look, I believe this in my heart, because this is
implant aborted baby parts into lab animals. Have you heard of that sort of research?
Yeah, we did an analysis a few years ago showing that over 90% of experiments with using human fetal tissue and putting them involved animals were funded by Fauci's NIAID.
Do you know where they're getting the aborted human fetal tissue?
Universities?
A lot of it is happening at colleges and universities that have affiliated hospitals that perform that
Pro-abortion, kill your
Madam
babies,
Chair,
because
I
guess
think
what?
we
We
need
need
to
to
look into
use
that
them
as
for
well.
experiments on animals.
And what is and honestly, when you look at Fauci and what he was starting to do in 2014, what he really started it with Dick Cheney right after 9/11, almost all of these, there is no medical reason to do these experiments. They have not made medicine better. They're not making us safer. In fact, the opposite. They are making things much, much more dangerous in the world. Where is the medical evidence that any of this was good and useful? You can't even make that argument.
Zero. And the only comfort that I could have, Glenn, and I was thinking about this yesterday, for the rest, because they took away his security detail. He's finished. He has to pay for his own security, which is good. For the rest of his life, Glenn, anytime he looks out of a window or he's outside in public, he's always going to be like this. At least I have that comfort, because how many people's lives he ruined, how many...
But you're asked about CBS losing.
Things are going from bad to worse for CBS. The FCC is angry, and they face a $20 billion lawsuit from President Trump. All of it follows on the heels of a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris that many believe to have been definitively defeating for the network. Now, their sale to Skydance might even be in question, and the network at the brink of not existing. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we dive deep into topics that few even understand, yet will be the headlines for tomorrow's papers, digital or otherwise.
Have that music, bros.
Topic seems to us that CBS and 60 Minutes likely wanted to curb interference through news distortion. National Amusements Incorporated. Pictures just have to happen. Government approval's the only thing in the way, and now they're in a big way. All right. Before we dive into the topic, let's go now to the original issue at hand that caused all of this to go south. It seems to us that CBS and 60 Minutes likely wanted to curry favor with the future owner of the network. His name is David Ellison, supporter of Biden and Harris. And so 60 Minutes did a thing. Here's the thing. We'll show it to you. For those of you who have seen this many times, we apologize, but some have not. And we want to bring in our new viewers where they understand. We'll get to the breaking news. But here's what CBS originally got in trouble for.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Now, this is but one of many clips from the show, from the interview, that have people quite worried. And of course, the FCC was able to break free the raw footage, which finally showed the world that this was, well, shall we say, manipulated. Is that a fair word? Can we say that? We'll check with our legal team. Folks, that's my opinion, but that's what I'm going to call it. It is filled, the entire interview is filled with situation scenarios where it makes you scratch your head and say, this definitely looks like more than just innocent editing. Even to the point that now many are wondering, with the FCC involved in the lawsuit happening, will there be subpoenas for emails to find out, was Kamala Harris given early access to the questions? All right, here's the latest, though. President Trump scored a victory on Tuesday when a judge deemed CBS and Paramount's motion to dismiss moot as his election interference and news distortion lawsuit moves forward. Now, that latter half is what's really important here, news distortion, because that's what the FCC is investigating now, news distortion. And that is what could damage CBS, potentially even with the power to remove their network status, which has an almost invaluable amount of number. It's almost incalculable how much damage that would do to a network to lose its network status. It's like a fast food restaurant that loses its food permit. Not good. Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit against CBS News in October, alleging election interference over its handling of a 60 Minutes interview. Last week, Trump's legal team amended the original lawsuit after the release of the unedited transcript and raw footage of its controversial 60 Minutes interview. The lawsuit added CBS News parent company, Paramount Global, as a defendant, citing how the 60 Minutes election special was platformed on its Paramount Plus streaming service. Oh no! The lawsuit added Representative Ronnie Jackson, Republican Texas, as a plaintiff and increased the damages claim to $20 billion. All right, let's go over here to Newsmax from Deborah J. Saunders. CBS hands FCC a gotcha moment. You're going to start seeing the legacy media now having to report on this in a more accurate way, lest they be out of the way of reality when it lands. Here's what it says. The Federal Communications Commission pulled a 60 Minutes on 60 Minutes. In a complaint filed against CBS, the FCC charged that 60 Minutes and Face the Nation last year engaged in news distortion that involves significant and substantial news alteration made in the middle of a heated presidential campaign. The FCC released transcripts of unedited CBS interviews with then Vice President Kamala Harris. I should note, says the author, the FCC move followed Trump's lawsuits against CBS News. President Donald Trump declined to appear on the show. Forget tough, though. The 60 Minutes Harris interview, which aired in October, skipped the obvious question about President Biden's decline. The FCC complaint stems from the editing of CBS's signature news magazine of remarks made by Harris, then the Democratic nominee for president. The edits made Harris appear more articulate and focused in the heat of the presidential campaign. Truth be told, most of the changes made by the show were minor and involved style choices. Well, sure, but that word most carries a lot of water, doesn't it, folks? You've seen the edit now. We showed it to you. It's why we played it for you. You can go back early in the video, watch it again, and see what you think. Yes, most of the edits were fine. That's like saying that most of the details about the car that you bought were true, when in fact it didn't have an engine. I don't know how you would buy a car without an engine, but let's say you did. Still, most of the facts were true. You still have a car without an engine. That's a problem. It's a problem for 60 Minutes right now. They've got a $20 billion lawsuit against them, and they have the FCC on them. Everything is going badly. This goes on to say the cat came out of the bag last year when CBS aired 2 different Harris responses to Whitaker's remark. Uh-oh. In the clip aired in October on Face the Nation, Harris responded a different way than in the show. The response presented Harris delivering a long, jargon-laden answer that didn't say very much. The second clip, which aired on 60 Minutes, presented most of the rest of the quote and was more to the point. We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end. In other words, they took out the bad stuff, left the good stuff, didn't tell you that that was the change that happened. And, oh, by the way, if you go watch the raw footage, which we have showed most of here on the Pro Channel in the past, you'll find out that when she's asked supposedly off camera questions, she can barely speak English. It's a very strong sign, perhaps, that getting into those emails between the Harris campaign and CBS might unveil some issues that would be of even further interest, i.e., did she know what was coming? Now, all of this matters tremendously because CBS is being sold to Skydance. And Skydance had thought this was going to be a very easy purchase, but things are not going that way now. CBS is probably worth about $6 billion. That's the estimate, and that's what Skydance is likely to want to pay for CBS. However, CBS now faces 2 major threats. First, from the FCC, this sale could actually be blocked by the government. That's not all, though. When you're facing a lawsuit in which the value of the lawsuit is higher than the value of the company, then David Ellison, who is the son of the 4th richest man in the world, Larry Ellison, the Oracle man himself, David Ellison now has to consider, is he willing to buy a company at $6 billion that has an additional price tag due to litigation, which is as high as $20 billion. And yet all of this was done so that David Ellison would be having fun with CBS. 60 Minutes, likely being presented the way it was because they wanted to curry favor so that they kept 60 Minutes at the forefront under Ellison when the leadership changed. And if the election had gone the other way, none of this would be happening because, well, unfortunately, in our current legal climate, power is...
And Doug.
You'll be back! Emus can't help people.
Well, it's what you need in the hour of need, and that's what now Republicans have, President Trump has, but the left, had they maintained control, it's unlikely that there would have been any movement forward on this because all government power would have been faced against Orange Man Bad to make sure that he did not get access to any of this. The FCC certainly would not be investigating. And, by the way, Orange Man Bad could have been in an orange suit because that's where things seemed to be heading as lawfare was continuing forth unabashed. All right, let's read about David Ellison here. Out of Skydance, it says founder and chief executive officer. Note that he basically runs this place because his dad. You might call him a Nepo baby. I wouldn't go that far. I think he has skills, but David Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison, and he gets a lot of money from Papa. David Ellison is chief executive officer of Skydance Media, the diversified media company he founded in 2010 to create elevated event-level entertainment for global audiences. This is why I would not call him a Nepo baby. The reason I wouldn't is because, well, he made something. He built something, and so good for him. Now, did he get tons of money to do it? Sure. But people get tons of money all the time and fail. Skydance didn't. That doesn't mean necessarily that we have to agree with David Ellison's politics. And to be honest, although he's been financially supportive of Biden and Harris, we don't know in great detail and high resolution what his thoughts are on politics. Maybe 60 Minutes thought they did. As CEO of Skydance, he sets and executes the strategic vision for the company across all its divisions: feature film, television, animation, games, and sports. David oversees the entire Skydance film slate, including 2022's critically acclaimed Top Gun Maverick. And you all love Top Gun Maverick. I love Top Gun Maverick, right? David Ellison, it was the CEO of the company that made it. Good for him. Which broke box office records and became the highest grossing film of the year and was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and a win for Best Sound. The studio's recent releases include The Family Plan and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Skydance's upcoming film slate includes The Gorge, Mayday, Balls Up, The Old Guard 2, Fountain of Youth, Way of the Warrior Kid, Matchbox, and Mission Impossible 8. Under his leadership, Skydance has produced a number of blockbuster and critically acclaimed hits. Now, the upcoming slate does not sound so strong outside of Mission Impossible, sure, but David Ellison, he wants his hands on CBS. And this situation we have, folks, could change everything. And the problem for CBS The problem for them is if the sale does not go through, if David Ellison does not take them at a value of $6 billion, then how in the world are they ever going to pay back $20 billion? Let me tell you, the folks over there who own it at National Amusements, they want a settlement and they want it fast. Even more speedily would they love to put this one out the door. They need it, they gotta have it, and they gotta get it done quickly. CBS, actually, folks, this is for real. If CBS cannot get this settled, and if the government blocks the sale, CBS could go under. And if it goes under, it could be sold at a huge discount, and that probably too has to be weighing on the minds of everybody at Skydance. It is a fascinating thing to watch, and watch it we will. And now you know what's really going on behind the scenes and why CBS and the rest of the legacy media freaking out, not only because USAID is or USAID is no longer paying out to them to subsidize all of the suck of legacy media, but also
Can't have that. Okay. Oh, man, well, should have figured that. Yeah, we went in the hole. You can bet on that. No, we didn't. Okay, figured we did. I will go ahead and open that one. Well, I should open them all. That'll work. Oh. Oh. secondary flag. Okay. All right, bros. Let's just give me a moment here. I gotta take my medicine. It's getting about that time. Be right back.